Hey YouTube, so today I'm going to talk about why I love Capture One. It's my raw processing software of choice, and I wanted to kind of go over some of the reasons for that and just kind of do that by showing some photos or showing a photo and kind of what are some of the things that I love about Capture One. Keep in mind, since this is a screen recording, colors are not going to be very accurate. So to really get an idea of what colors look like, you need to be opening the software and opening your own photos on your calibrated monitor because a screen share over the internet compress is never going to do it. But to start, what I wanted to talk about was kind of it's one of the things I love about it over Lightroom. Lightroom is catalog based, which means that in order to work on a photo, you need to import it into your catalog. It then needs to generate a preview before you can work on it. Capture One does have a catalog feature, which I have played around with, but currently I'm still using Lightroom for its digital asset management features, but not its raw processing. So I actually work with sessions in Capture One. What that means is that for each job, I create a folder on my computer using Capture One, and I'm just going to show you quickly here. So when you make a new session, you pick a place to put it. I always call mine, the date, the 15th, and then a name. So spring florals editorial. What this will do is this is going to create four folders within this one job folder. So you're going to have a capture folder, a selects folder, output folder, trash, and you can change the names of these. But I just like to use their defaults. So what that means, once you've done that, you can actually point your, of course I'm getting a spinning wheel here because my hard drives are queuing up here. But you can point Capture One directly to a folder, as you can see here, and you'll be able to just start working on it. You don't actually have to import it. So you can see right here, it's showing me photos right away. It does take a second to generate a preview, but it's usually a lot faster than Lightroom's import it, then generate previews. You can go directly to one photo and work on it. So I'm going to go back to my capture folder here to show you this photo I was working on. So to start, I want to talk about the workspace. Everything combined here, all your tools, how you have it laid out, that's your workspace. The beauty of Capture One, and it really comes down to the fact that Capture One I find to be a much more professional tool than Lightroom. The reason for that is that it's completely customizable depending on how you work. You know, in Lightroom, you have to work the way that Adobe wants you to, which is fine, and it works for a lot of people, and it works to get great photos. And really, I can't say that you can't get a great photo out of Lightroom because that's just not true. For me, though, I like to be able to do things the way that I work because when you're doing a ton of editing and a ton of processing, every little thing adds up to time that you are spending doing something that doesn't work the way that you really want it to. So to get you an idea of kind of how this works, I can just really quickly show you. Let's say I do sharpening last. Well, I'm going to drop that down here, and now sharpening is the last tool on my workflow here. So you have these different tool tabs here. I'm going to move this back because I keep sharpening up top. Each one of these tool tabs gives you a complete different set of tools you can use. So if you're just working on color, this is a good one just for color. My Q tab, this is where I keep 90% of what I do. Sharpening, white balance, exposure, HDR, clarity, color editor, film grain. What's amazing is that you can actually, I'll right click here, I can add a tool to this. So if there's something that I want to do, like let's say I want to add a curves tool here, because I like working with curves, we'll have that here, have a curves tool in this panel here. What's even more amazing, you can drag that off and you can just have these panels sitting wherever you want. So if you work with two different two different monitors. You could actually drag that over and have a set of tools over there. You can put these, have floating panels that work together like that. And so once you've customized your layout to work exactly how you want it, you can go to create a workspace and you can save it as a workspace, so that you would be able to bring this workspace up anytime you want. So let's say you have a different one for weddings and portraits and fashion and tethering, whatever it is, you can have a different one. So like, I'll show you quickly, if I click on a different one of my workspaces here, it will rejigger this entire thing. It got rid of some of the distraction, just has my color balancing tools up here and my browser on the right. And you can put the browser on the right or the left. So it's super customizable. So I'll show you, I can throw this, place the browser, place browser below, just so you can kind of see an idea. It's totally customizable. So can go to the left, on the bottom, or I'll put it back on the right. The reason I keep it on a side is because modern screens have more width than they do height, so I like to have throw it on the side. But you can put the tools on your, so you can switch it. So this is the more traditional Lightroom way, not traditional, but it's how Lightroom does it. It puts the tools on the right and the browser on the left. Again, just super customizable. I can drag that browser around. I can make my tool window bigger, which again, you can do some of that in Lightroom, but I like what you can do in Capture One. So I'm going to go back to my preferred workspace for fashion and portraits here. And it's going to just kind of do a little rejigger in there. All right, cool. So we're back here. Initial image quality, when you bring something in to Capture One, I have found to be, it's so subjective, but for me, I just like the way it looks better. It's sharper. It requires less work from me than Lightroom does to get a similar photo, a similar processed image. I don't know, it might just be the way that Phase One, the company that makes Capture One, interprets color. And micro contrast that gives me this preferred look. But Adobe just doesn't do it for me in that case. I was using Lightroom again for a while because of Fuji files that I'm shooting with nowadays. And Capture One wasn't supporting compressed raw photos from Fuji. Now that they are, I'm back and I'm really happy about it because I was not very happy with dealing with Lightroom to try and process those photos. So I happen to really like the initial image quality out of Capture One with a couple of real quick adjustments, that I use as a preset. I'm always in the ballpark of what I want right away. So let's talk about a unique feature of Capture One, the focus mask. So I'm going to toggle this on right here. This is one of the many adjustable tools in Capture One. You can change exactly how precise this is. This green here is showing me what is the sharpest points of this photo. So by having that on, you can really quickly tell what's in focus as you're culling, and also which areas might need a little bit of local sharpening. When you're shooting this is shot at f7.1 with a 98 millimeter, a lot of it's should be pretty sharp, so it's not going to be a big issue. But you can see that I'm probably not as sharp on the eye as I'd want to be. So you can see here in the browser, as I go quickly here, that I was focusing mainly on this flower here. So you can see little bits of that are sharper as opposed to this, which is just out of sharpness zone. It's a really quick way to see through see what's in focus, and it's amazing when you're shooting tethered. It's also just amazing for reviewing. So that's a really cool feature. Pretty sure Lightroom does not have anything like that. Another thing I like to use when I'm shooting with my camera, I use the histogram and the highlight blinkies. There's the highlight exposure warning. What it does is it gives me a good idea of what skin tones should be at. I like my skin tones to be just under clipping because it means they're nice and bright. but not, unrecoverable. So in Capture One, you can actually, so I just turned on the exposure warning. This is actually a bit underexposed, but what I can show you is that if I bump this up, you can start to see it come in right here on this skin tone here, the highlight area of the skin. That is about, I would basically, if I was shooting tethered, I would be looking for this, and then I would drop my exposure by like 1/10 of a stop so that I was just below that clipping point to give me an idea. The nice thing about this is that I can actually customize exactly where I want that exposure warning at. So I put it at 245 because that for me is about the skin tone level that I'm looking for. You can also change your shadow warning to be at a certain level depending on how much you want to make sure you have left in the shadows. So that's really cool to be able to customize that. And again, here is where you can customize the threshold of your focus mask. So really, if you really want to know where that exact focus is, you can. So I'm going to turn off that exposure warning, but it is really good to have. So next, I want to talk about the clarity tool. So Lightroom has clarity. Most processors have clarity. The difference is that until recently, actually, like last year's version of Lightroom's clarity tool really destroyed a photo pretty quickly. It did a little bit too much sharpening as opposed to just adding mid-tone contrast. Clarity in Capture One is so advanced that it has 4 different modes. The classic version is kind of that, punchy, sharpening version of clarity that some people are used to. So it's an amazing tool to just add sharpening and also mid-tone contrast all with one right there. But I'm going to reset that because in a lot of cases, I just want to add some mid-tone contrast without affecting color and also without affecting the sharpening. So the neutral version really adds mid-tone contrast without affecting color in any significant way, which is really cool to see. So I can kind of try and show you. And again, you're looking at a screen share here, but I'm just and this is a little exaggerated just to kind of show you the effect. But that really gives you an idea of the power of this tool. The punch tool, this one's cool because this will actually really pop your whole photo. It's an amazing way to get a quick saturation, color, contrast boost all in one. So again, here's the before, here's the after, and that's just from dragging one slider. It's actually pretty amazing. It does some really cool things to this particular photograph. So I'll reset that. I'm usually working in this natural mode. The natural mode is pretty subtle. I don't like to do too much with it at first, just to get a baseline. I usually go right around 20 to give it a little bit of micro contrast right there, and that's how I will generally start. The structure tool. So they've broken this out. Structure is more like if you were shooting something that has a lot of fine detail. The structure tool is amazing because it's going to pop out. What you can see here is you would never do this on skin, but it's popping out some of the pores here because that's kind of a fine detail. And this is showing it to you really exaggerated there. So I'm going to bring that back and just kind of show you that is an additional way to affect kind of micro contrast and sharpening that Capture One offers. Really great on like street scenes and landscape photos to use that structure tool. Something like I don't know, junkyard's coming to my mind, but I mean more like a garage setting kind of mix of textures. That structure tool is really cool. So another one I want to talk about is going to be the color balance tool. So I'm going to go down here, and one of the things about this color balance tool is that, again, like everything in Capture One, there's a bunch of different ways to use it. So I'm going to close that up. If I do I've got a master one here that's going to affect the whole photo. And you can kind of see this. I'm just changing around the colors. The 3-way is going to break it up into shadow, midtones and highlights, and then you can individually adjust each of those. What's cool is that, like I said before, with customizing this, if we do another one of these, I'll drop this in here, and then I can have a midtone, and I can add a third one here, and have a highlight. So right here, I can now affect all three, the shadow, midtone, and highlights of my photo. This is an awesome way to do your color grading. You know, if I want to just add in a cool effect, I can just drag in and add a little bit of blue to my shadows. It gives it kind of a cool wash, a little bit of a fashiony look, and I might add, you know, do a little bit of a cross-processing look by adding a little bit of green to the midtones there. You know, avoid maybe a little bit of magenta, and I can kind of play with this so that you can see kind of how much I'm adding it. So you can move it here, you can adjust it here, you can adjust the luminance factor of it. Again, it's just super super robust in its abilities, and that's what's really cool about Capture One. So the color balance tool is a really neat feature there. So next, I want to talk about adjustment layers. You can actually, let me just quickly see something here if I can do a local color. No, it doesn't look like I can there. All right, so with the local adjustments, so obviously Lightroom has local adjustments, and you know, they work well. What I find, I love the way that Capture One does local adjustments, because what it does is it actually puts them all in their own layer. So let's say I'm going to add a layer here, you know, and I could change the name, and let's say we're going to call this flower saturation. So just like you would in Photoshop, you name your layer there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag up my saturation just a bit here. I'm going to use my brush tool, and one thing I like to do, by hitting the M key, I can actually see my mask really quickly. And see what I'm drawing on. I can actually change the color of that masking brush, and I've changed mine to this kind of crazy purple blue because it tends to stand out really well on the work I do. But you can customize that for whatever you want to do in your preferences. So I've drawn that on pretty sloppily, obviously, but just for a quick view, I'm going to turn that mask off, and let's bump this up to really show it. And to give you a quick on-off, if I just click on that layer, it's on its own layer, so you can see the effects just by turning that on and off. One of the things that's awesome about saturation in Capture One is it's not like, it doesn't just bump all of the channels of the saturation. What it actually does is it looks at which parts have a need for more saturation, and it starts there. So it's not, it's interesting because it's a little more advanced and a little more precise in its saturation adjustment, and it tends to give you a better result than something that's purely global. So you can kind of see that was pretty subtle, but there's other ways to enhance saturation, but that's a one quick way right there. And the point of this was to show you how the local adjustments work. So I could turn that one off, and I can show you I can add another layer here. So we'll do, I'm going to show you my next favorite tool, which is very unique, and anyone using anyone who photographs people should be really interested in this, the Skin Uniformity Tool. So what I'm going to do is really quickly, and again, I'm being pretty sloppy with my masks here because of the video. It has all the brush settings, and this can be tied to pen pressure for your Wacom tab. I'm just going to bump this up a little bit, and I'm going to turn on my mask so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to draw this in. Normally I would go down the entirety of the skin, all the way down to the neck and all that. But for time savings, I'm going to draw that in. I'm going to quickly hit up here. I'm going to fill the mask in. So that's a quick way to save some time. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this off of the eye makeup, because I don't want to affect that cool eye makeup or the eyes when I play with the skin adjustment here. So I'm just going to quickly brush that off using the erase brush. Brush it off of here. And finally, the lips are another area that I would not want to affect with the skin tone tool. And again, not being very precise, but I'm going to just show you that quickly there. So when we go to the color editor tool, which has the basic things like Lightroom does, which allow you to just adjust overall colors. It has an advanced tool where you could select a particular color and get very precise. But what I want to show you right now is the skin tone tool. So what I'm going to do is find a color of the skin that I like. So kind of right in here is a pretty good one. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand this a little bit. This is the color selection, and I'm going to bring this out just a hair here to kind of broaden the range. Well, what's amazing here is this little tool called the Uniformity Tool. And this is going to be hard to see on through YouTube, but I am going to kind of just tell you about it here. So the hue slider here. What the hue slider is going to do is bring the colors near that color closer together. In practice, what that means is that you are evening out the skin tone, so evening out the splotchiness in the skin. And I'm going to do the same thing with the saturation slider, because again, it's going to even out that skin tone, which is something that normally takes a lot of individual retouching as part of the retouching workflow for skin, is evening out all the skin tones. Finally, I'm going to play with the lightness slider here, because this is going to again further even out those shadows and the differences in the texture of the skin. I would actually probably erase some of this blush here. So I'm going to just quickly do that at a really low flow. Just so it's not affecting that too much there. So I'm going to see if this will show you the difference. Here's the after, here's the before. Again, after and before. So just by dragging a couple sliders, I did an amazing amount of evening out of the skin tones here. The colors look better, the contrast and the splotchiness of the skin is cleaned up, all just by using a drag and drop tool and a couple of sliders. That's an incredibly powerful tool, and really an amazing way to start working on skin without having to go to Photoshop and do pretty advanced things there. So that's the skin tool, skin tone editor. Let me actually just show you, let's see if I can show you a side-by-side here. So I'm just going to clone a variant here, and we'll show these side-by-side. So you should be able to notice it. And again, these things are subtle because good retouching is subtle. But this skin looks a lot better than the one over here if you were looking at my monitor. So I'm going to go back to this. And, I just wanted to quickly show you that color editor tool, how detailed we can get with this. So this is what Lightroom's HSL, hue, saturation, luminance, looks like. It's basically the same. So it gives you those 6 colors there. However, if we want to get a lot more advanced with that, I want to work specifically on this color. And I would usually do this in a adjustment layer so that I could have control over the masking. But I can get very specific here, and then I can play with the hue of that color itself. So I could change my background color. Here's the original. Let's say we want to make that a serious purple color. I can really do that. I can even, I can drop it down, and this does a pretty amazing job masking it via color because I'm getting so specific, as opposed to if I tried to do this in the HSL slider, it would not quite work as well. But that's a really cool, powerful tool there as well. And again, you can just turn these on and off. It's nice because you could add multiple colors. It can work on this red one here. This is probably going to affect the skin tones, but just to show you, yeah, it's doing too much of the skin tone, so I would do that on its own layer, but just so you can kind of get an idea of how that works. So finally, and there's a ton to go over with the way that Capture One works. Oh, this is another thing: keyboard shortcuts. You can make the keyboard shortcuts do exactly what you want them to do because you can customize them. So you can change all of your keyboard shortcuts, pretty much every single thing you can imagine, including adjusting exposure and white balance. You can change what tool does that. The main one that I changed because for some reason by default, going from the previous or going to a next photo requires a command right arrow. I just have changed those to be right arrow, left arrow so that I quickly can go back and forth. But knowing that, there's one thing that's always driven me nuts about Lightroom, which is hitting R for the crop tool. Well, it's C in Capture One. When I hit C, it opens my crop tool here. You can adjust, I like that you can change how the background opacity and even the brightness of this, so you can get an idea quickly of what that background is, and you can quickly see it and see what the rest of the photo looks like, and quickly do a crop there. Double click to reset it, and you can add aspect ratios, custom ratios, and I'm pretty sure you can do all that in Lightroom as well, but just kind of showing you how that works. One of the things that used to be a unique feature of Capture One was the Keystone Tool. I believe Lightroom has added something like this, but it's amazing if you do any real estate work or anything that requires straight verticals. You just click on it, you add, drag and drop these on 2 vertical straight lines, you click apply, and it's obviously going to destroy this photo, but it would even out the verticals on a photo that needed it. So let me just reset that. All right, and cancel out of that. So that's a couple of the other tools that I like in here. Finally, a good place to end on is process recipes. So Lightroom's got its export presets, which are great, and you can set them up to do everything you want. However, if you have a batch of photos, let's say you've got you did a shoot and you want to export the photos you're going to put on Facebook, the photos you're going to give to the client, and photos you're going to archive. Those in Lightroom are going to require you to click all the select all the photos, click export, click on the preset, do it again, do it 3 times, and then wait for them all to go. It doesn't take a ton of time, but again, everything adds up. So the way that Capture One does exporting is through process recipes. What you can do is turn on or off a process recipe and then click process, and it will run all of those. So let's say that I want to run a Facebook one, so that it exports them at 2500 pixels in sRGB. I also need TIFF backups, 8 bits, 8-bit TIFF backups. So each one of these I can put a subfolder. So this one's going to be 8-bit TIFFs, and these stay however you set them up. So you only have to do that once. This one's called Facebook. If I click process, what this is going to do is actually process both of those at the same time. And since I have everything going to my output folder in my capture folder, in my folder here, let's go to the folder that this one is in, which is going to be Spring Floral Fashion. So this is how it looks here. I'm going to click output, and you can see that it created my 8-bit TIFFs and also my Facebook files. Some of these were already in there from work I was doing before. But what's cool is that you can all of a sudden, with one click, have all of your output that you need from this shoot and send those files off to wherever their next destination is. Keeps them super organized and has them all in one place for you. So I really like the way that it does that. So overall, really, I just find Capture One, like I said, to be a more professional tool. It really comes down to the fact that Adobe's primary market are, I'd say about 90% of the people who buy Lightroom are not going to be professional photographers. It's just because that's just the way it works. More people have heard of it, and amateurs are going to want it just as much as professionals are. Capture One, on the other hand, I don't know many amateurs who are ever going to look at Capture One. it has a little bit of a steeper learning curve. It's more advanced, and less people know about it. So it's just really their primary target is going to be professionals. They're really the only. It's what every high-end commercial photographer shoots to, largely because of its tethering ability, which I didn't even get into. But the tethered shooting ability of Capture One is so far beyond what Lightroom offers, and so much faster. The time I did a test bringing some photos in when I was shooting tethered to Lightroom versus shooting tethered to Capture One. It was like a 45-second difference between a photo showing up in Lightroom and a photo showing up in Capture One. So again, that's another reason that it is a more professional product. These are some of my thoughts on Capture One, and let me know if you have any questions about it. Happy to do another follow-up video trying to go more in depth into a certain area if you have questions. Please leave me a like and subscribe for more videos in my channel there. Thanks, guys. Have a good day, and I'll talk to you next time.